And if we're going to spend the money on it, we need to use it to the fullest extent that we can, but not use things that aren't going to return value and just force people to use it because we have it. You kind of understand the problems. The problems in construction haven't really changed. The nature of the industry is you still build the building the same way. I probably would have pushed for technology in our company sooner because I think we were really behind the curve, and I think there was solutions out there before that we could have adopted and made and been further ahead. And then every other rollout we've done, what we've tried to do is draw a very straight line to how is this making your life easier? Trunk submittal, straight line time savings, trunk review, straight line time savings, trunk RFI, straight line time savings.
Elliot Christiansen, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So it's sunny, looks like there in Cleveland.
Yep, we finally got to that point of the year where we have more sun than clouds and rain.
Now we're talking. Well, I'm excited for this conversation for a number of reasons, Elliot. I think there's been a lot of conversations in the industry about how pilots often fail. Like the fail rate on pilots from a tech standpoint is really high. And I think often we like to either blame the vendor or the technology itself. And I think one of the things that stuck out to me as we kind of started chatting was just how intentional and involved you were in any kind of tech rollout. And so I kind of wanted to dig into that. Some I would say on the executive side would say, hey, we're trying something new. Report back to me in 90 days on how it's going. Your approach is quite different. What does your approach look like when you kind of dig into a new tech tool?
I think if you're going to make the investment in technology, then most of the time the initial pitch is coming to me from a tech vendor, and I have to put my name behind it when I'm
Yeah.
going to our ownership group and say, hey, I think this is going to make our guys better. If I'm going to put my name behind it, then I'm going to be involved in it throughout the rollout, throughout the pilot process, and make sure that if our guys are saying it's good or bad, I'm going to make sure that I am right there with them to believe that we either gave it a fair shot to know that it was bad or that they actually used it and to know that it was good. And I think it's important that you got to have somebody on the executive level that has rolled up their sleeves with the project team that piloted it to know that we're actually getting accurate information back. And I think, me coming up through the way I came up through the company, starting as an APM, working as a project manager on site for most of my first 5 to 7 years in the field, and then being close to the work for most of my time at Cleveland Construction gives me a unique perspective on how the technology actually helps the guys and makes their jobs easier. So it makes it easier for me to help with that assessment.
Well, and I think it helps. It starts with maybe your analysis and how you do kind of tool selection for a pilot. And I think that's even unique, which is you're not always just focusing on maybe features and functionality, but really understanding where the challenges are in your workflows. So maybe you can walk us through that. Just upstream, what does that decision making look like?
Yeah, so some things, like I'll give you an example. When we looked at open space, we're a national contractor. We work all over the country, pretty much eastern half of the United States, starting to go further west for certain clients. And we're based in basically two offices for our general contracting operations here in Mentor, Ohio, and in Charlotte, North Carolina. And for me to sit here in Mentor, Ohio in the office and really know what's going on a job in Kansas City, it's hard to look at still images of a job and really get a good flavor of what's going on. But if I have a guy walk open space once a week and walk the whole project, I can get a really good idea of what happened week over week. And on top of that, from a progress tracking standpoint, if we've had a claim on a job or we have somebody, an owner that comes back after the job's open and say, hey, we're having a problem with the building, we don't think something was installed correctly. If I have that week over week walk, I can go back and I can know exactly how we installed it back 6, 8 months ago, before the drywall was installed, before the insulation was installed. I know where all the plumbing is, all the electrical rough-in is, and exactly what we did from a fire stopping detail or something like that. And it's an invaluable tool for us, and it's one of the better, I think, dollar cost of software to what we got out of it that we've implemented in the last several years, I think that's an easy ROI to see.
Hmm. Well, and I think one of the things you kind of drew a line on between the tools that kind of make information maybe more readily available and help you find things, and tools that give you kind of time back. Have you found some tools that fit in that kind of latter category?
Yeah. So when we implemented trunk tools, the first pilot we did was just trunk text. That's all that was out. And we had some good success with it. We kind of had mixed results in the first one with just trunk text. We implemented on a job that was, call it 75% of the way through, had some pretty messy data, um, and maybe had some bad document control by the project team, had a lot of turnover in the staff. But we found enough value to where we thought another pilot was probably worthwhile. So we did three additional pilots after that on three different jobs with three different project executives, so we could get a broader sample size. And the main reason was because they were rolling out their trunk submittal tool, which in concept, when they had shown that to me, was the first one that I saw that I really thought there was a straight line ROI time savings for somebody in the industry. And this is going back to the beginning of time. I mean, even when I came out of school, they put the most, as an industry, we put the most inexperienced people reviewing submittals. And I can remember in college, they're not telling you how to review submittals. You come out, you sit in the trailer, you're handed a
Yeah,
couple thousand page spec book,
it
and you're handed
it's
some product data.
no one wants to do it. No
Yeah,
one wants
Well,
to do it.
and training and onboarding around submittals is just involves you getting yelled at. Like
yeah,
we talked about this. It was
It's just awful.
like what's wrong with you? Are you? It was like
What's wrong with you?
and
that
it's
was my only experience with like learning submittals was yelling what not to do. And I
yeah,
guess
and
eventually got there.
and they never come in right, and they're all different. Every vendor's product data is completely different. There's no like standard submission for submittals.
Stop it, Elliot, with your good
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah. So this really, like, I could see it just on the demo that they showed us. So I thought that the additional pilot was worth just that. So when we started rolling this out and started seeing on the first couple projects that we rolled it out on, it was a no brainer for me. It was like the aha moment for trunk tools with us. And the second part of it was when we went into trunk review, which is their drawing review tool. We really kind of saw the same thing, but looked at it more in the change order pricing aspect.
Mm,
We get a drawing set after GMP signed, get a bulletin, it automatically reviews it. We're starting to see and we always thought there was unclouded changes, but we're starting to see just how many unclouded changes there are. We're starting to get a Word document, scope of work with it. We're able to use that narrative that sometimes you don't get from the architect and engineers anymore. And we're able to
never.
use that to start writing our scope, for our change order with the owner, but also to put RFQs out to subs for it.
Hmm.
Starting to get change order pricing back faster. Back to the submittal tool, we're drastically reducing the submittal processing time. Our initial submissions are going in correctly more often than not now. Um, we've actually had an architect, the first job that we used the submittal tool on. The architect was so impressed with it that they it recommended us to another owner that they were working with.
Hmm.
And I didn't find that out until I was doing a webinar with Trunk Tools with one of our APMs. He said it on the webinar. I hadn't even heard it before. Uh, but yeah, it's a really good like direct line to saving time.
What do you think is what do you think is like the message to the vendors around how to manage and handle pilots? Because I think we've all been a part of really bad pilots, and maybe there's a lack of domain expertise from the person interacting with the project, like showing up in like tennis shoes and like shorts to a job site. Like, what do you think was your experience, and how is it different than maybe some of the other pilots you've interacted with?
So I think Trunk Tools, using them as an example, um, our team that we were given with Trunk Tools did a fantastic job of onboarding our project teams, meeting with them weekly, making sure that our guys really understood how to use the system, how it integrates back to our system of record, which on our first pilot was Procore. On our next round of pilots was Autodesk, because we were making a transition at the time. They were giving me analytics back on who was using it, who was not using it, so that I could make sure I was calling people and say, hey, we're doing this pilot, trying to figure out if it's going to work or not. You're not even trying to use the system. So they're helping me hold people accountable, but they were doing all the training, and they were going out of their way to make sure that they were using it weekly. And that service hasn't stopped since we went enterprise wide. Our CSM meets on a weekly basis for the first couple months of the job with our teams. Then they relax it to kind of a bi-monthly basis, and then it gets to a monthly basis once the team's ramped up and ready to go.
That's great.
All right, sponsor break. Lars, real quick, when was the last time you got a new set of drawings from an architect and they didn't cloud anything?
Well, the one that cost me a couple $100,000 was back, I think, in 2017. So, yeah, lesson learned there.
Yeah, so what I like about what Trick Tools is building is they're looking at tools to help kind of remove the mundane from the job site. And I, same as you, every time there was a bulletin or an addendum, I would go back to the designers and ask them to at least highlight or give me a cover letter on the changes. And that was always like pulling like teeth. But Trunk Tools is now automating that. So you get a bulletin come in, it automatically highlights the changes. You don't have to do a thing.
Well, it's also hitting RFIs, right? It's also hitting submittals. And when we think about standardizing ops, right, and providing that, sort of resource to those field operators, what I see it as, it's sort of like this like mentor within the company that structures, standardizes, keeps it moving in the right direction, looks out for risk. And just this last week, I had a QC manager just pass along a submittal to an owner without doing a review because he was too busy, and it was wrong. And the classic owner statement is, did you even review this? Right? So this to me is carte blanche. We absolutely did. And think about getting that first pass before your field manager ever even actually has to do the first pass. Someone's doing it for them. So to me, it's about speed. It increases accuracy and helps standardize ops out in the field, right?
Yeah, and this is the kind of AI that we've talked about on the podcast, really appreciating, right? Which is looking at ways to elevate the craftsman at the heart of project delivery.
Give me time back so I can be out in the field managing risk, right?
I mean, Lars, we don't need to say names. Or do. I mean, if they're not in business anymore, you can say names. But what was your worst? If you had a bad pilot story with Herman?
Prologue.
Oh, yeah, Prologue.
I got it. Elliot's like, No, so I think we were pretty blessed to have me driving technology change young, and wanting to figure it out and telling people it's okay if it breaks, it's okay if it's wrong, start using it, give us feedback. I mean, we weren't allowed to use drones or anything, special. I did a lot of military construction, Elliot. So it was like, and then in hospitals, we were sort of with patient care and HIPAA and things like that. I think a lot of it just comes down to leadership and saying, we're doing this, and we need you to lean in. And I'll tell you, Elliot, too. So my old company, we used Procore, and my new company, we're using Autodesk. I got a lot of we'll call it old cast of characters back, and it's just that trying something new, learning something new, it's hard, especially when you get to be a certain age. It's just hard. And I'm telling these guys, I'm like, listen, I wouldn't have switched if I knew this wasn't actually going to make your life better. Like, that's it. You have to know what I'm trying to do and take all the years of us working together to know that's where I'm coming from. Okay. We're rolling out drone deploy. And that's another learning curve for some of these guys. But one thing there on that one is like, their customer success, they have a phone number and you can talk to a human being. Do you know how far that goes? I think with people in a job site trailer, that's a big deal. So anyway, I think a lot of it comes down to leadership. I think a lot of it comes down to not biting off more than you can like chew. It's incremental improvements on a platform, and just keep training, keep training, and keep training. So there you go. We had a lot of success implementing technology, Stephen. I'll just say that.
I like that. Are there Pac-Man on your shirt? Is that what's on your shirt?
It's a ghost gunner. Yeah, it's a ghost gunner. It's got a ghost and a little gun right there.
I love that. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think intentionality is huge. I think having senior leadership engaged from the outset, like that, fits the narrative that this is a priority. Like everyone should be spending time on this. Without that, it's hard.
And because then they get, well, do you want me to do this or do you want me to do this? And so they
Yeah.
get conflicting reports on, well, what are the most important things for the company? What are
Yeah.
the initiatives? How do you define success specifically when you look at me? Am I doing my job correctly? It gets into, I think it just gets into culture, right? It gets into culture. And I mean, Elliot, it sounds like you guys you are part of a team that wants to make it better, right? Like this is hard. Let's make it better. There's a lot of people out there that don't know how. They might want to, but they don't know how.
Elliot, this is a bonus question. How do you manage like initiative fatigue? Right? Like there's
Oh,
everything everyone has to do, right?
squirrel.
Yeah, so yeah, it's actually been a big thing the last, call it 18 months. I mean, I'll tell you what we did in 18 months. We went from Microsoft Project to P6.
Yeah.
We went from Procore to Autodesk. We added GC Pay. We added Open Space. We added Trunk Tools. We added Breadcrumb. I'm sure I'm missing something.
Yeah.
That's at least what we've done. And that's a lot because it affects basically everybody on the operations side.
Yeah.
And really with the Autodesk one, I think where we did it right was when we did our initial assessment of Autodesk after Autodesk got by me, and because I was the biggest Procore supporter in our company for 10 years. And when Autodesk got past me and said, okay, yeah, you can demo this to the masses at our company, and we probably had 30 people sit on the demo calls. We did 3 calls. We let everybody have a voice. We had superintendents, we had estimators, we had project managers, we had people from like the back office accounting. We had everybody that would have to touch the system, sit on it. And after we went through all the demos, we had an internal meeting and said, okay, who's got concerns with switching? And it was more one of those like speak now or forever hold your peace moments.
Yeah.
But is there any reason we shouldn't go forward with getting a price? And in that meeting, I stood up and explained why we were even doing it. And it was cost driven, and it was because we went through an audit and we got, hit over the head with an overage fee. And then when we were under the following year, there was no credit back. So we were trying to just be transparent with the employees, and everybody bought into why we needed to look. And then when we got to the rollout period and we got to, now we're 5 months, we'll be 100, 5 months to the day, we'll be off of Procore 100%. And we've had, I'm not going to say zero pushback. We've had very little pushback, and the complaints that we've gotten have been very small. And then every other rollout we've done, what we've tried to do is draw a very straight line to how is this making your life easier?
That's huge.
With Trunk Tools, Trunk text was hard because it's hard to tell a superintendent, well, you're going to be able to stand on the job and say, you're not going to have to walk back to the trailer. Superintendents are very skeptical people. They're going to ask a question and it's going to give them an answer, and they're still going to check. So it's not necessarily always saving them time until they get to the point where they trust the answers.
Confidence. Yeah.
Right. Eventually they'll get there, but Trunk submittal, straight line time savings, Trunk review, straight line time savings, Trunk RFI, straight line time savings. Open space, when we overrode that out with the superintendents, it was okay, when you do these walks once a week, We no longer are going to require you to take 1,000 pictures a week in Autodesk or Procore and put descriptions on them and put locations on them and do all these other things with them. We still want you to take progress photos, but you no longer have to do all these other steps, because we know we'll have this really good documentation once a week of where this was, because we'll have it on the drawing. So there was like an offset. And then they were able to use that and we started to give them use cases. Use this in your sub meetings. So you don't have to end the meeting and say, okay, hey, we're going to go walk and look at this. Pull it up in your sub meeting and go right to it. So now there's time.
Right.
PMs, use it in your owner meetings. When there's somebody on the phone and they're not in person, you can pull it up and share it on the screen. You can resolve the issue right there.
Yeah.
So we started to give them those little use cases that made the software more valuable.
Yeah.
And then now while we're rolling out Breadcrumb, Breadcrumb's got an integration with Autodesk, so it's a safety software. They've had a deep integration with Procore for a long time, and they just rolled out an integration with Autodesk. Yesterday we connected it, but we do all our job site orientations through it, so our subcontractors can do their orientations before they show up, and our superintendents no longer have to sit in the trailer with them for an hour and put them through all our series of videos, do all the paperwork. All that can be done before they get there. And then our subcontractors only have to go through the site-specific portion, what's very specific to that job site. And it tracks everything digitally. They no longer have to have a log on site. It allows our subcontractors to check their manpower in and out every day for our superintendents. That'll push directly into our superintendent's daily job reports and update the manpower in the daily job reports. Now our guys aren't having to walk around and count people. So it's starting to save time that way too. And then it's pushing all of our like permits to work, JHAs, things like that from Breadcrumb directly into Autodesk. And it's tracking who's done those and not done those. So our guys aren't having to collect all hard copies and things like that too. So you can draw that straight line between, it's making your life easier and we're implementing a new software. And when you get to the point where they understand they're asking for the software now. We've actually got people on job sites saying, hey, why haven't we implemented this on my job yet? Or people asking, we'll tell people, hey, you're midstream. We're not going to make you do this because you'll have to do X, Y, and Z to get caught up. But if you want to do it, it's your option. We've got a couple projects that said, hey, I know we've only got 8 months left, but we want to add Breadcrumb. So if you're going to ask for it, we'll definitely let you do it.
It sounds like one of the things that you've done well too is not just consume the product in its current state, but also provide some filtered kind of feedback around how it fits your workflow the best. How do you aggregate and kind of filter out some of the bad suggestions? Like you're always going to have like does this integrate with TikTok or like something weird, right? So like how do you filter out some of that?
You're talking like the edge cases, like just the totally random objections.
Like I've been on calls where you open it up wide enough and you spend half the, most of the call on the edge cases and you don't get to the stuff that is actually going to move the needle for most teams. Like how do you filter that out and get that to the back to the tech companies?
I think it goes back to being as close to the work for as long as I was. You kind of understand the problems. The problems in construction haven't really changed. I mean, the nature of the industry is you still build the building the same way.
That's right.
And I think talking to our teams on a regular basis, when you go to the job site, really understanding what they're going through, and you can kind of filter that out naturally then. I mean, an RFI is processed the exact same way today as it was processed 20 years ago. Now it's just in a system and not a fax or you know what I mean? That's the difference. So understanding the process and having a really deep understanding of what your processes are and how it works helps you filter that stuff out.
So leadership.
Yeah.
Like I think we spend so much time thinking about like efficiencies. What kind of product can we use to like aggregate feedback but like in the absence of leadership and intentional leadership, it's hard to do some of these things well. Yeah. Lars, you're going to say something.
It just, on Contracts Connected, my sole goal has been returning time to builders. Fewer clicks, more time. And, it's amazing how many companies, leaders just again, and I've been guilty of this, so I'm not going to say I'm perfect. Well, I was just like, oh, that's so and so's problem, right? They figure it out, they own it. But when you actually go and talk to them, and next thing you know, you go talk to the other person they deal with, it's like Frankenstein, and you're like, how did we end up here? And I think though it's just like, yes, it's the same process as we did 20 years ago, just different medium. But I think sometimes we've created we're like slaves to this monitor and machine, and 37 clicks now to get an RFI submitted in Procore. What? How did we end up here? This is crazy. And I just long for getting more time while the machines do the work, do the review, do the structuring of the data, and do the chasing of everything. That's not a good use of my time. Yeah. And specifically what we handle back office, it's like, good luck finding people that want to do that in the next generation. Good luck.
They won't. So, you're going to get
where would you want to?
I don't want to do it now.
No. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, I think it would help to, because, you're a senior vice president, Elliot, and there's probably another senior vice president listening to this and saying, man, that's really interesting that he's being so intentional around kind of pilots and adoption. And
clarifying question, Stephen. Yeah. Elliot, are you on ops or are you more on like innovation side? Just so the audience understands exactly how you fit into a pretty large machine.
I'm on the ops side.
And so you're in charge of building buildings right now with teams.
Yep. So
and you are like, we'll call it a tech help me, promoter at some level, huh?
Yeah. So I just have adopted the technology space because it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
But two, I know the value that it can add to the project teams.
Yeah.
And I also know, because of where I'm at in the company, how much we spend on it. And if we're going to spend the money on it, we need to use it to the fullest extent that we can.
Yeah.
But not use things that aren't going to return value and just force people to use it because we have it. Because I think people fall into that crap too. Prolog is a great example of using it because you have it.
So bad.
It was so bad.
So bad. We've come a long way. But that was like cutting edge back in the day. It's like, this is a big deal. Hey, where's your surfer in your trailer, right? Do you, Stephen, I do have a follow-up question on that one, Elliot.
Yeah.
So you said you do know how much you spend on this stuff. How does Cleveland go about measuring ROI on a platform that you've chosen to pilot, chosen to go all in on? How do you measure success from a financial balance sheet standpoint?
That's such a hard question. Different platforms have different answers.
Yeah.
That's what you bring up in the renewal conversation.
Yeah. That's a good. Yeah. So if you look at let's look at Autodesk versus Procore for an example, like those two platforms. You almost in this day and age need something for that. So because it takes up so much of the work. You're doing drawing specs, submittals, RFIs. It's the backbone of everything that you do.
Yeah. Yep.
It's tied into our ERP. You have to have something. So at that point, the ROI on it, you're looking at, you have to have it. I need to get the best value that I can for something I have to have.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get into like open space. I think the ROI on that was huge when I can look at the visibility I can get into a project from 2,000 miles away.
Yep.
Instantly going online and being up to date within however often I need to be up to date. And then also know that I have the historical data of once a week for the entirety of the project. It's almost invaluable. And the cost of it versus what I think
what you just described, whether it's a plane ticket or however many hours in a rental car in a hotel, this or that, or owners far away and now they want to see it, but
or I get one insurance claim paid for that I might not have got paid for. It pays for itself.
Or the claim goes away because
or the claim goes away because, or I get a change order, or maybe we're in a claim situation with a subcontractor, and I end up on the right side of it because I have the documentation that maybe I wouldn't have already had.
Yeah.
It pays for itself with one of those.
Yeah.
Trunk tools, you look at the submittals, the RFIs, and the drawings, just those things. If I can get an APM to be able to work on 2 projects instead of 1 project because they can do all of those things faster and more efficiently, it pays for itself.
Yeah.
GC Pay completely revolutionized our accounting department. It gave our the ability for our subcontractors to see why they weren't getting paid without having to call somebody. It gave all of our remote project management staff the ability to review and approve pay applications considerably more efficiently. They could see why subcontractors weren't getting paid without having to
Mm-hmm.
call anybody. It completely brought all of our remote employees almost into our accounting department overnight. So there's just some ROIs on some things it's really obvious, and on other things it's really hard to tell.
Well, I think it's like indirect and indirect, right? Benefits and value. And I think one of the indirect elements is something you talked about, which is also like morale, culture, people enjoying their job. And I think as we see an uptick in Gen Zers kind of coming into the industry, there's like a 25% uptick in folks kind of joining different trade houses. And but from a retention standpoint, we're going to lose them immediately after they come in the door if we bog them down with like 1970 processes and tech. So I, that's one of those indirect things that's hard to measure. But if your job site is just humming and you've got a tech stack that enables people to do the side of the job that they enjoy, that's big.
Hey guys, if your experience was anything like mine when I was a PM, change orders were kind of a pain. You send the change order, then you spend the next 2 weeks chasing it. Subs are texting you updates. Meanwhile, you have a change order log buried in email. Your spreadsheet doesn't match theirs, and you're just trying to figure out what's actually been approved. Meanwhile, your subs are waiting on answers so they can get paid. The owner doesn't really have the visibility they need into cost exposure, and nobody finds out that the numbers don't reconcile at all until closeout. At which point, everyone suddenly disagrees about everything. That's not a people problem, it's a systems problem. Everybody on the job is working out of their own setup. Your ERP, their spreadsheet, someone else's inbox. Change orders end up getting stuck in the middle of all of it. Well, ClearStory fixes that. It's a shared cloud-based change order log where GCs, specialty contractors, and owners all see the same information in real time, which is key. Submit and track their work. GCs stay on top of status. Owners see cost exposure before it becomes a surprise. No more digging through email trying to reconcile the logs at closeout. Just change orders under control, which is a unique concept. Check it out at clearstory.build.
So I think it would be good to also understand in this age of AI that we live in, the build versus buy kind of equation has changed. We've talked about this quite a bit on the show. In your seat, how do you and how are you analyzing how you might just cloud code yourself some element of a solution for a workflow challenge you're having? Is that starting to be part of your kind of apparatus of decision making?
So we've got a couple people internally that are starting to look into it. Right now, we're still very much in the buy mode
Hmm.
because we know everything integrates back with the stuff we need it to integrate with, and until we get some people on board that are like experts in it and we know we can handle it, I think we're still going to be in the buy mode. But I think down the road in the next couple of years, if we can find the right people to bring on board that can build stuff and we can start experimenting with it and start to see that it'll work, I think that could really change our perspective.
Yeah. Back on adoption, you you've kind of talked through like a really intentional way in which Cleveland approaches kind of tech adoption, and you've had some really kind of positive response from the teams. Do you have any observations around the demographic or the type of person that either falls in kind of early adopter or the kind of laggard categories? Like who ends up being the most challenging or answer any variety of that question?
So I usually try to hit, if we're going to do a pilot, try to hit multiple demographics in the pilot because I want to make sure that we'll be able to reach the demographics, all of the demographics at some point. And I'll usually try to pick somebody that I know will be a detractor from it in the pilot, and then pick somebody that I know will be down the road be a champion for it. Like there's a no doubt this person's going to buy in. They're going to be a champion for it. I just need to get them involved up front so that they can be ahead of it and probably help train project teams later. But I usually do try to pick somebody that I know, like this guy probably will hate change. He'll probably hate doing this, but I'm going to get him involved in the pilot because he's going to tell me all the things that are wrong with it.
Yeah.
And then I can start working on them ahead of time, and I can go back to the tech company and say, hey, these are some of the bad things I'm hearing, and we can start working on that during the pilot stages to try to flush those out. But I think
Like Sun Tzu stuff there, Elliot. I like that. You gotta find your detractors and bring them as close to you as possible. I like that. But yeah, it provides good feedback. That's what you need to really drive a successful pilot, huh? So in terms of like as we look at, you've got a GC business that has some margin on it. Is like you've rolled out all these tools. Now looking forward to the rest of 2026 and beyond, what's the analytics that goes into the workflows that you focus on next? How do you analyze existing tech in kind of your existing stack? Like, how do you focus your time as it relates to trying new things versus going back and reviewing maybe tech that you've already adopted?
so. I think right now we're probably in the good for now stage on pilots. I think we've hit
Yeah.
that fatigue stage. There's one more out there that I would like to do, and I've got to get a couple people on board with that. I want one more pilot, and I think if I can get a couple people on board with it, I think it'd be a really good one. But um, evaluating what we have, it's a constant just feedback from the field teams. Is it working? Is it working as advertised? Is it delivering what I promised it would deliver to you? I've made a conscious effort of making sure that all of the people that we work with will provide us usage dashboards on a regular basis. It's either always available to us that we can go look, or they're sending us something from their back end
Yeah.
on a regular basis so we can make sure it's actually getting used. It's one thing to call our guys and ask, hey, how's this going? Are you using it? I know I had one of my superintendents the other day. I was on site and I said, hey, how's this new trunk RFI working out for you? He goes, oh, I think we asked 12 questions in it the other day. And I called our trunk tools rep and I said, hey, I want to see the usage for this job site. And they sent it over. That guy had asked 0 questions. Now, other people had asked a bunch of questions that added up to 12, but he specifically had not asked any.
Yeah.
I made sure I called him and I said, you didn't ask any questions, so you need to ask the questions. But it's nice that they can provide that information, so I can make sure that the teams are actually doing what they say they're doing.
Yeah, that's cool. And so you're in this stage of like you're kind of in a steady state. The underlying data at Cleveland, increasingly there's a conversation around kind of data strategy as kind of an impetus for whatever kind of AI offers either now or in the future. How much of what you're doing now are you thinking through? How do I maintain my data? Like, has that changed how you've approached any of these tech contracts?
Yeah, we're starting to look at how we can pull all the data back into one data warehouse, so that we can start looking at how we can pull like global dashboards that integrate or pull data from every system. Um, Crow, there's a company out there that we've talked to within the last couple of weeks that has some really good solution for it, and they can do some custom agents where you can have like auto reporting come to you every week, and we could have did our guys do their open space captures? What are they doing with breadcrumb? Have they done their daily job reports? Like some of that compliance stuff, automate some of the things that we're checking to make sure our guys are doing.
Yeah.
And they can probably do the whip reporting that our guys are spending a bunch of time on every month. And being able to aggregate all the data in one data warehouse is probably the next evolution of what we as a company need to go to.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's, having sat on the tech side of the industry for a bit, and Lars, you're a little bit in this role now. It's an industry that's pretty unique in how it buys, in that a lot of it's word of mouth still. And, we spend a lot of money on conferences and maybe like articles in Construction Dive or, or whatever. But, as a PM, never looked at any of that companies because it was in a magazine. It was because like a buddy PM or a superintendent mentioned to me that this was a good tool. So
and it helped them.
yeah, and it like drove some element of
Sure,
value.
yeah.
And so as you're in the SVP spot, I think there's probably tech vendors thinking like, well, man, how do I access people like Elliot? And I think you mentioned a change you made in the last, I don't know, 12 months around, because people like you're getting so much noise from the tech community. And so I think the two questions are like, one, how do you engage with the tech side of the market? And then two, like, what's the message back to them of like, hey, maybe don't LinkedIn message me every day. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
So I listened to a podcast probably 18 months ago now, and the message on that podcast from the lady that was the guest was that she opened up, she'd avoided tech sales calls, which is exactly what I was doing at the time. I would just, I'd
yeah.
get the LinkedIn message, or I'd get the email, or I'd get the random phone call. I would just ignore it. And she said, I just opened it up and said, give me your pitch. And I listened to all the reasons why she said that. It was like a 45-minute long podcast, and it kind of resonated with me at the time about like why it was actually important to hear the things, because just basically you never know what solution you're going to hear that you
Mm.
it may be solving a problem that you have that you didn't know that there was actually a solution for.
Yeah.
So I started taking the calls and didn't ever really realize just how many solutions there were. It's actually quite overwhelming. But it seems
It's like I wasn't prepared for
Yeah.
this.
So, but I think don't be afraid to take the phone calls. I mean, obviously you have a real job to do too, but take the phone calls. You know pretty quickly into the phone calls that if they're spending a bunch of time trying to pull information out of you about your company, I mean, they really should already come with a pretty good idea about your company. They should have done their own research. And they really just need to come tell me what their product does. And if their product only does one thing, it's probably not something that we're going to look for, because we don't want a 20-point solutions.
Mm.
We want to have a couple things in our tech stack that work really well and solve several problems each. Because training, when we have 120 some employees on our GC division, if you count like back office staff and things like that, but we don't want to train 120 people on 20 things. We want to train 120
20
people
logins per person. They're going to kill you. They'll leave.
Exactly. So
also, it can't be so high level, right? Like if you come in and say like, we're going to digitize your workflows, you'd be like, all right, well,
those were the last 20 calls I was on.
That's right.
Good times.
Yeah, so I think it's know your product really good, because some salespeople don't. You better know what type of projects we do already, because if you're selling something that's going to work like really good for federal work, we don't do a lot of federal work on our general contracting side. We do mostly private work. So it's not something for me. It's just know the customer before you get there.
Yeah, I think the vendors who don't understand just how many different fragments that exist in the industry, whether it's by project
construction
type or by focus, by culture, like I think you're 100% right. And I think that the challenge in this like VC era that we live in is, their VCs are telling all of them, their total addressable market is like the entire general contracting community, and that's never the case. And so they never get niche enough to actually spend the time understanding who the real ICP is and so they can show up to a call with you and be like, okay, Cleveland, this is where you work. These are your regions where you operate. This is the project types you focus on. I think that's I've said this before, but I do think the best products rarely win in the industry. It's the products with the best go to market strategy with a competent back end that are going to win. But how well does that resonate with you, Lars? If you're wearing the Dawes hat,
Yeah.
have you opened your email to inbox to any tech vendors recently? What's your approach?
I appreciate the question. I'm probably not as open as Elliot.
Yeah.
Probably. And I think it's primarily because I have a decent understanding of, we'll call it what I did the first time, and now sort of doing it again and eliminating some of the, I'll just say that the time it took to make some of those decisions and just making some of the decisions a little bit quicker. I mean, we'd always use P6, so that's an easy one. I need P6, right? We use Procore. It's like, I need a backbone. It's not Procore because of the exact reason you described. The heads I win, tails you lose. It's like, no, I need a better partner, and I need a better partner who can handle drawings the way Autodesk does. It's like, done, go. I also love the flexibility on that one. And then, really then from contracts connected, back office, structure, automation, done. And then it's just like little point solutions, like, well, the breadcrumb, like, okay, safety managers, this is interesting. We're currently using something called GADZoom. It doesn't have this structure to it. I'm going to go check this one out, But other than that, I mean, I think to Elliot's point, I don't want 20 point solutions.
Yeah.
I need 3, 4, maybe 5. Simplify. We have to simplify.
I mean, here's a question, Elliot. You're going to say something on that.
Yeah. So the other thing is, when a vendor calls and they want to talk about something, and I say, we don't need this right now, don't try to keep me on the phone for another 10 minutes and ask me why.
Yeah.
I know why. You don't need to know why, but I know why. I need to get on with my day. So that's one of the most annoying things. And I very rarely ever take a phone call from those people again.
I'm with you.
The challenge with that is because what am I saying that's not connecting? And maybe it's like, well, we don't do federal work. Oh, well, shoot, I wish I would have known. I'm sorry for wasting your time.
And I don't want to be rude. It's that's not my goal. But at some point, I just have to hang up. I mean, the call just keeps going.
I'm guilty of should not have picked up that call. Click. I got 1,000 emails. How many text messages have I gotten in the past, 15 minutes of being on this meeting? It's like crap,
If Lars has hung up on you in a call, comment put your note.
Don't. Oh no.
Sponsor break. If you spend any time running a project, the answer is almost always sitting in the contract document somewhere. The catch is that it's almost never in one document. It's split across the contract, the specs, and some flow down clause 3 layers deep that nobody connects until it's already cost money. That's the whole premise behind Document Crunch. That risk doesn't live inside any single document. It lives in the gaps between them. And most teams never look at all of them together until they're standing in a dispute. The average construction dispute in the U.S. now runs about $60 million, according to Arcadis. That's a lot of money. And the root cause they point to isn't fraud or bad intent. It's people not fully understanding what they agreed to. So Document Crunch built a platform around closing that gap. Crunch AI reads the documents, surfaces the risks, and it cites the exact page and clause. That's big. So you're not just taking its word for it. Project Assist lets your team act on it, ask questions across the entire project document set, and draft your submittals, notices, and RFIs right from the chat window. And the whole thing runs on your own company standards. So the office and the field are working off the same playbook for bid through closeout. No disconnects. It's live now across the US and Canada. Go to documentcrunch.com/construction conversations and book a demo.
Here's a question, Lars. So you and I have kind of gone on this AI journey of it's somewhat in parallel. And I think we're coming upon this realization that there's more powerful ways to store your own data than others, right? For example, if you have some skill files, storing that as an MD, as an MD file rather than a skill file, enables you to be not so reliant on Claude. You can use Perplexity and these other systems. Like, I think there's an analog to enterprises, which is as you develop your data strategy, creating it in such a way that allows you to plug it into these solutions in a really flexible manner, in a modular manner, so that you can leverage the value, but then also move it as point solutions come out and offer different features and functionality. Does that resonate with you guys both?
Um, I,
It
yes,
felt,
because I
it
think
felt revolutionary when I thought it in my head, but it might not have been
well, let
revolutionary.
me let me. I sort of dream of like this sort of like these flexible software solutions that meet companies where they're at,
Yeah,
rather than, again, I was a new business in 2009. I bought Prolog, and I
yeah,
was like, thought it was going to help me, and I was like, this was a mistake. I had no idea. I was sold a bag of goods, rather than let's keep it really simple. And as businesses mature, it's like they grow with, they meet them where it's at. And I think that's sort of like where we are with the AI tools that are out there, and the coding capability, and just, you don't, I mean, listen, if you're a small business, like, you don't need like these complex PM solutions. You don't. You you can kind of have Claude go code a RFI tracking tool for you on a per project basis with a little simple web interface for you on your local machine. Like, that's what's capable now. Not that long ago, it's like, yeah, there's no way that could ever be possible. So, or that'd be just expensive. So,
You know, an example of that is, so I spent some time recently on a big site where the owner has a pretty aggressive digital delivery spec, and there's a Kobe reference. So for those who don't know, Kobe is just like it's a format in which data is delivered to the owner, and it's really intense and intricate. And pretty much all kind of assets within a building need to be kind of categorized and documented in a very certain way, and it's a CSV file, right? And so, like, I just had a conversation with Claude Code about how, like, a better system, and I was like 3 prompts in, and I created like a pretty interesting way in which any raw data can be translated into Kobe format, and like this little dashboard that it kind of like local stored file like dashboard that it created was like, you put in the raw text, you hit enter, it can output a Kobe format, like Kobe formatted file, but then also gives you all kinds of like dashboard level information on what you have. Like, it'll give you how many different information or assets you have, non-commissioned versus commissioned, like the warranty information that's embedded. It was like, well, that was 30 minutes. So what else could we do?
so, so what's crazy? Actually, so story for Elliot. Like, I was having Claude build out forms in Autodesk for me. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't have to sit here and click for hours, copy paste. Like, here it is. This is what I'm trying to do. I'll track this, do this, safety, quality, production, boom, boom, boom. And again, I was like, wait, I wonder if Claude could do this. Son of a gun, it did it all. I was
It's
like, this is
amazing.
amazing, amazing. But what blows my mind, guys, is that we're just construction. Guys, this is doing it in manufacturing,
Yeah.
in pharmaceuticals. I mean, in finance. Go down the list of everything.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
What's crazy is how they're probably way less surprised by it in those industries than we are.
Right? It's so good.
Yeah. What voted D Star 5?
Elliot, well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Our minds blown, and they're like, "Yeah, we've been doing this for years."
Yeah, we've been doing this for like a decade, 20 years now. What are you guys doing over there? You don't want to know.
So, Elliot, before I ask my last question, I think it would be interesting to understand, how did you get to this point where you're in a leadership role on the ops side, you have a respect for tech, you are intentional in how it's rolled out. Obviously, you found some great partners in Trunk Tools and Open Space and a few others. What do you think in your career taught you to lead in that way?
Well, my last job that I was actually an on-site project manager on was outlet mall we built in Columbus, Ohio for Tanger outlets. And that was the first project we did a pilot on Procore for in 2015. It was my job. And our IT director called me in his office one day when I was in the office before that job started and said, "Hey, I found this software that integrates with Sage 300, and we had been looking for something because we were using Sage 300 as like a project management software at the time to do meeting minutes and RFIs and submittals, and obviously that was not improving at all."
No.
And he said, "Hey, do you think we should look into this?" I was like, as we went through the online stuff, I was like, "Yeah, we should definitely at least take a phone call on it." So he looked it up and we looked at it and we did a demo, and then went to a pilot on my job. And ever since then, and we did that pilot, and then once I did the pilot, then it inherently became my responsibility to implement it with the rest of the company and train the rest of the company. And it just kind of took off from there, because then we went to, as we implemented the financials tools a couple years later, then we implemented the e-signature integration with DocuSign. So then that was mine then, and we started to implement more and more, and it just kind of kept snowballing from there, and it just became part of my normal job.
Yeah. I thought you were going to answer it's because I'm a millennial. Like,
No.
I think millennials, though, I think are uniquely positioned to lead in these ways, which is like we were kind of pre-digital. Like Gen Xers, Lars, you guys, you're all right, but you're not millennial.
Stop it.
So we were pre-digital, and then we came of age in digital, and now we're like right in the middle of AI. Like we're the best of all worlds, Lars.
I would agree with that, Stephen.
Thank
I would
you.
agree with that.
I didn't expect you to answer that way. That's good. But
Yeah,
you're right.
we had to fax and FedEx,
Yeah.
and now we can just ask the computer to do it.
Yeah. The whole spectrum. Here's another question. Actually, Lars, I need to hand off a question. Do you have a last question for
I
Mr.
so
Elliott?
appreciate it. No, I'm going to leave Elliot alone.
Okay.
He's good.
So what I like to ask is, now where you're at in your career, if you could take one thing that you've learned in your career back to young PE Elliott, what would you hand off to him?
Wow.
Invest in Google.
I probably would have bought tech stock.
Yeah.
I probably would have bought some stock in Autodesk when it was way cheaper. I probably would have done some stuff like that, but I think it would have been. I did a lot of stuff out in the field when I was younger, and I did a lot of stuff the hard way. I probably would have pushed for technology in our company sooner, because I think we were really behind the curve up until we got to probably 2015. And I think there was solutions out there before that we could have adopted and made and been further ahead. So I probably would have done that. Knowing what I know now, that probably would be something that I would have pushed for maybe in like 2010 to 2012. And it probably would have set us up a lot better in some of those jobs through the 2010 to 2012 years. And we've been way further ahead, because we started doing way more complex projects like 2012 to 2015. And we were still doing it the hard way, where like Box was a main part of our management strategy with projects. And having a Procore, because it was out then at that point, would have been a lot easier.
In defense of where you are now, I think I bought Procore in 2011, and Elliot, they didn't know what an R5 was.
Well, that's fair.
So I think you probably timed it just right to get adoption. So just saying.
So Lars, that's true. Like they were like, "Hey, what's an RFI?"
They didn't have like a submittal tracker or anything, man. It was really painful. I got rid of it after a year. Yeah, because I was like, I can't be teaching you how to do, I can't. They didn't have responsibility, meaning like they might have had an RFI, but it was just like, well, who owns it? Who's ball in court, right? Like who owns it? and
Yeah.
it was a significant problem.
You
So that
you
was
were paying them.
Prolog, Procore, yeah, and I'm paying them. Honestly, the piece of tech that I bought early on was SmartBitNet, because I was told, like, hey, you need to buy a fax machine. I'm like, what's a fax? Yeah, or sorry, not what's a fax machine. Why do I need a fax machine? And well, it's on bid day. You got to collect all these bids, right? I mean, I remember it clear as day. And oh, by the way, I was given like a 4,000 line item spreadsheet and like, hey, these are the subs you got to email. I'm like, huh? And yeah, I educated my mentors on this concept of what's called fax to email. They were blown away.
Yeah.
My I mean, not as long as we're telling stories. Like BIM 360 was, oh man, now I'm forgetting the first name of it. So Mike Davison had a tool, and it was kind of this like Last Planner, kind of one of the
Yeah.
first kind of technologies that was using Last Planner.
Yeah.
And I integrated it and implemented it at a data center that I was building. And then midway through, it was working really well. And then Autodesk acquired them, and it, they did some good things. But yeah, man, we could have a whole podcast on just like early implementations of tech on job sites. But Elliot, that was really good. Thank you for joining us. Any final comments before we go?
No, I think it was great. I really appreciate you guys having me on. I had a good time.
Okay.